day, everyone. Welcome to our talk on next generation threat intelligence. My name is Jeanette Jarvis.
Okay, start from the top.
What happened?
There we go.
Did I do something?
Start from the top.
Okay. Good day, everyone. My name is Jeanette Jarvis, and with me is Neil Matz. We're here today to talk about next generation threat intelligence. So FortiGuard Labs is the Fortinet threat intelligence and research arm of the company. FortiGuard Labs has 215 researchers, analysts, and engineers who know the threat landscape inside and out. They're constantly monitoring the threat world and discovering the new tactics and techniques being used, and they modify our systems as needed. They do about 480,000 hours of research per year, and they're located in 31 countries. And what's great about that is we have someone on all the time, 24/7. There are FortiGuard researchers aware of what's happening in the threat world. We work with 200 plus partners. This is law enforcement agencies, this is vendors, this is Cyber Threat Alliance. These are programs where not only do we share information around the threat world, but we also partner with takedowns and just research in general. FortiGuard Labs also does response, outreach, and education. So they teach and they develop curriculum for universities. So they're really helping to prepare the next generation of cyber workers. And they also put on hacking skill competitions like Capture the Flag. So they're helping people constantly tweak their skill base. And Fortinet overall is a strong, smart company, strong innovators. We have 467 patents issued. We have 291 more pending. And when you think of the size of the company, that's a phenomenal number. We hire smart people here. So the FortiGuard advantage. FortiGuard Labs delivers services and intelligence that protect and defend against the evolving threat landscape. Now, cyber criminals are increasingly developing and deploying automated attacks. And to compete against this, we need an automated and intelligent defense that can identify the new and existing threats and deploy those preventative measures throughout your portfolio. Actionable intelligence, if you will. That's what FortiGuard Labs brings. Now, on the right, you see the Fortinet fabric. And FortiGuard Labs entwines with all our products across the Fortinet portfolio. We provide the signatures, the rules, the policies, and the intelligence and research that the entire product line can in turn ingest. And in turn, we get data back. So this provides us awareness of the entire global threat landscape. It's a quite robust perspective on what's really happening in the threat world. And our success is measured by independent third-party testing results. And here we really have unparalleled validation via these certifications. Okay, so let's go into the threat landscape. So the business and the threat landscape are really driving the need to look at managing cyber security differently. The operational environment is getting more and more complex, and companies just cannot find enough skilled workers in the cybersecurity discipline to keep up with the need. The volume, the velocity, the sophistication of threats today is simply overwhelming. In our case at FortiGuard, we ingest 50 billion events per day. That's a phenomenal number of data. We also process up to 1.3 million malware samples per day. And last quarter alone, we saw 17,671 unique new malware variants. It's an overwhelming problem. And when you couple that with Gartner's projection that there's going to be 21 billion IoT devices connected by 2020, 2 short years from now, we're going to have a tremendous amount of data. And it's going to be extremely difficult to figure out what you should be focusing on when there's so much data. Okay. So every day we are inundated with headlines that are telling us about new breaches, new ransomware attacks, new vulnerabilities, new exploits, stolen credentials, and more. It's really a bit alarming. What you see here is FortiGuard by the numbers. This is something that we put out every quarter, and it gives you a real good perspective on the volume of data that we deal with and see on a regular basis. I'm not going to focus on every one of these. I'm going to pull out only a couple. Let's start with the one right in the middle. Network intrusion attempts. 4,400,000 network intrusion attempts were blocked per minute. Now, that is up more than double from the previous quarter. And then in the bottom left, you see 91,000 malware programs were neutralized per minute. That's up from 22,000 the previous quarter. Now, it's important to note that these numbers are going to vary, right? They're going to fluctuate. As we discover the tactics that the adversaries are using, they're going to move on to new tactics and techniques. So these numbers will fluctuate. Some quarters they'll be higher than others. But it really gives you a strong perspective of the sheer volume of what we're dealing with on a daily and minute basis. Okay, now let's go into our machine learning and artificial intelligence program. So how do we get to the point where we need machine learning and artificial intelligence? One thing I like to say about the cybersecurity business is nothing stays the same for very long. I've been in this industry for over 25 years, and I was a customer at one point, and we used to get our signature files mailed to us on a 5¼ floppy once per month in the snail mail. Now imagine that today. That just simply couldn't work. But that's how far things have changed over the years. Initially, you could create one signature, and it detected one malware. And that was effective, but it wasn't effective for the long haul. Pretty soon, hackers were creating new variants, and that signature quickly became out of date. So then we were able to create one signature that could detect multiple malwares. So it could be the same family, it could be the same techniques being used, and that worked for a while. But then the APT, the Advanced Persistent Threat Movement, hit. And that's where we moved to behavioral analysis. And this gave us an opportunity to run the malware in a secure environment to understand better the malware capabilities. This is called dynamic detection. And that could give us awareness of what was the malware actually doing. Is it dropping files? Is it modifying the registry? Is it running processes? Is data getting exfiltrated? And that was real good, and that works today, but it doesn't work for everything. And that's because malware authors got smart. They tweaked their malware, so when it saw that it was running in a sandbox, it would not execute, and it evaded the detection. So now we've evolved to machine learning. Excuse me. So with properly trained machines, you can be more agile, and you can respond rapidly and precisely to that evolving threats and tactics and techniques that are being used. Now, Alan Turing is created with really planting the seed for artificial intelligence. His thinking was really far ahead of the capabilities available at that time in the 1940s. But he really laid that foundation for us. You might have seen this story play out. There was a movie called The Imitation Game, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, playing Mr. Turing. Really good movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. He did most of his work at Bletchley Park. You know, he cracked the Enigma during the war, which helped shorten the war and win. The picture on the top right is Bletchley Park, which I took that picture when I visited there a couple years ago. If you're a crypto geek like me, definitely go visit. I strongly recommend it. And on the bottom, you see a picture of what's called the bomb, and that's the machine that Alan Turing used to crack the code. Now, that's a mock-up. In Bletchley Park, they don't have the machine there anymore. They have mock-ups. But nonetheless, it's pretty impressive to see how large that machine was at that time and compared to what we're dealing with today. Now, artificial intelligence is really part of our everyday life, but the risk of the machine output being 100% correct really varies. For example, with Amazon will predict what books you might order. So when you log on, it's saying, hey, here's some books that you might be interested in. And it's based on past behaviors. Now, they're not always going to be right, because sometimes you're going to order a gift for someone that's maybe a topic that you're not interested in. But what's the risk of to Amazon? Well, not much, right? You're on Amazon.com, you're probably still going to order something. Cities are using artificial intelligence for traffic flow. And if they get their results wrong, it's not really that impactful. You're probably going to wait longer at a red light. Frustrating, but it's not going to impact your life. However, if you look at the autonomous car, that's where artificial intelligence, machine learning has to be right, because some life could be impacted. So your life could be in danger if the machine is reading it wrong. Google and Facebook, they use artificial intelligence for ad revenue. If they get it wrong, they're losing revenue. So it's important to their bottom line that it's right. Now, we in cybersecurity, we have to get it right. If our results say a file is malware and it's not, a false positive, if you will, then we could cause a huge disruption to our customers. And it could be very costly to them, and it's also costly to our brand. Same if we said something was not malware and it was a false negative. Okay, so let's delve into what defines an expert system. I'd say that artificial intelligence is the buzzword of the year. Everybody's claiming now that they do it, but really, in order for artificial intelligence to be really successful, you need a robust learning system, and you only get that with time. FortiGuard Labs has been running artificial intelligence now for 6 years. So we have 6 years where we've sent hundreds of millions of malware samples each year to our system. So the machine learns the characteristics of files, and it can help identify without hesitation if a file is clean or if it's dirty. So let's define the expert system in more detail. So artificial intelligence is where the machine can carry out tasks the same way your brain does, right? It lets the machine access the data and learn for itself. Machine learning is the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. So you teach the machine to make decisions, predict the answer, and even when it's never encountered that task before or that file before. And deep learning, this involves passing data through webs of math, algorithms, if you will, loosely inspired in how the brain works. This is also known as artificial neural network. So as network processes train the data, connections between the parts of the network adjust, and this builds up the ability to interpret future data. That's what makes AI successful. So artificial neural network is this large collection of interconnected nodes, neurons, like your brain, each of them with a weighted input and output value. And to get it to work, you have to feed it data. Again, this is where we excel, because remember I said we ingest 50 billion events per day at our company. The bed of data that we can draw from is just unprecedented. We also send hundreds of millions of files through our system each year. Now, how does a deep learning program work? You really have 3 components to it. The first is supervised learning, and this is where you send files to the system that are correctly labeled. So you send the file saying this is malware and these are the capabilities and characteristics within this file that indicate it's malware. So you're very clear about what's malware and what's not. In real life, supervised learning is done for disease diagnosis and also for speech recognition. Now the second component is unsupervised learning, and this is where you send the machine unlabeled data. So the machine starts to see patterns and recognizes and learns on its own. In real life, unsupervised learning is used by Netflix, but it's also used by the baby's mind. So as the baby absorbs the world around it, it learns to recognize patterns, unsupervised learning. And the last is reinforcement learning, and this is the piece that focuses on performance and accuracy. So you send the system files without any labels at all. It questions the file, it offers grades, and it gets rewarded when it's accurate. So it learns the outcome independently. You see this a lot in gaming, right? The machine gets smarter as you win, as you note all the characteristics of what it took for you to win. The machine learns that, and next time it's going to be harder to win because the machine understood what works and what doesn't. Reinforcement learning really processes focuses on improving that performance and accuracy, if you will. Okay, so this here is our expert system in a nutshell. So first, we have data coming in. That's the collection. We get data from 20+ sources, including that 50 billion events we ingest. Data comes in. First thing it hits is our CPRL system. And the CPRL system is our first algorithm that we developed. It provides device matching. It has the ability to find the same family of malware within a large base. And it also has a very powerful unpacker system. So it can deal also with a large volume of data. One of the coolest things I think about CPRL is that it has the ability to write one signature that can catch tens of thousands of malware. So it can really make our signature base very effective and efficient. And I want to tell you that I came from a competitor, and it isn't uncommon for security vendors to deal with DAT file bloat. And that's where their DAT file is so big that every day they have to determine what can I take out, what signatures can I take out to put in new signatures. We don't have to deal with that because we're very effective and efficient. And it's proven out with the third-party independent testing that we are successful. Next in line is our auto CPRL. And this is one of our machine learning programs. And this system looks for behavior and features, and then it auto-writes the signatures. Of course, we have a strong QA for anything that's auto-written. Now, the signatures here do have a lower catch rate, but we can send the signatures on to our analysts, and they can tweak it to create a higher catch rate if needed. And last is our SEDS system. This is our self-evolving detection system. It's a very large machine learning operation. It can rapidly and accurately detect attacks through malware vectors. It uses a combination of supervised learning, so known solution sets, and unsupervised learning, unknown solution sets. And it employs the artificial neural network, where every file that's sent through SEDS is scanned against 5 billion characteristics that allow us to define and weight the quality of each file with extreme confidence. It also has a quite enhanced training system. So we feed it malicious files, we feed it clean files. We submit about 2 million files to the testing system each week, and it filters out the most accurate features of the attacks that it sees in these files, and then it distributes that to the system. And quality is, of course, very critical. So let's step through what that looks like. I'm going to focus on the chart on the right. You have a 4-layer structure. So we have an input layer where the files come into the system, and of course we have the output layer where the file is determined to be either clean or dirty. In the middle, we have 2 hidden layers. In this case, we're showing 4 nodes on the malicious layer and 4 nodes on the clean layer. But in reality, we have 2.3 million nodes for the malicious layer and 3.2 million nodes for the clean features. So every file that comes in is scanned against every single one of those 5 billion plus nodes to determine if the file is clean or dirty. So we're extremely confident. Again, we train the system over time. We refresh the characteristics, so it's constantly evolving. It's a pretty enhanced system, and we're very confident in the results. So let's look at, let's walk through it. You send a file in. It hits the first node. Again, we have 2.3 billion malicious nodes, but here I'm just going to show one. It sees when it hits that first node that there's a 90% chance that this file is malicious. When it gets to the clean node, it says there's a 20% chance that this file is clean. Overall, that gives it a 70 weight, and obviously that would be malicious. Now, again, this is one node. We have a 5 billion. Let's walk through it in action. So here you have the files coming in, being scanned for the features. Are they malicious? Are they clean? And then it declares if they're clean or dirty. There it goes. And then over time, again, our feature set improves, so we're quite satisfied with the accuracy, and we're very confident in the results. Pretty impressive. So what do we do with the results? Well, adversaries are developing evasion techniques to avoid detection. And a strong AI deep learning architecture is going to discover what those techniques are. And evasion techniques really are hard to discover, but once they are discovered, they're really hard to miss. And it's hard to miss anything that looks like that evasion technique. So artificial intelligence helps us do that discovery. It's really hard for adversaries to develop new hooking techniques. And our AI system, it significantly increases the cost burden for cyber criminals. Our system is very adaptive, and it's proven and validated accuracy. Again, this is evidenced by our third-party independent testing. The outcome of our machine learning and artificial intelligence platform feeds the data back into our signature writing system, and then it's deployed across the fabric to detect all our products. So we have had a tremendous amount of success, obviously, with this program over the years. Here's one example. This is a live example where the FS-ISAC began notifying partners that financial institutions were reporting a possible watering hole attack. This is where a legitimate website had discovered a vulnerability, and it was being used to infect visitors. Several days later, Trend Micro posted a discovery of a zero-day, and it indeed was targeting financial institutions in North America, Europe, and the APAC region. And the malware did all kinds of nefarious things. And in the end, it wasn't just the financial institutions that were being targeted. It was also hitting telecommunications, IT, aviation, education, and more. Now, when we got the sample from Trend, we looked into it, and we found that we had protection in place 4 months prior, just due to the discovery of a dynamic algorithm that we had created. And that one signature covered every variant that soon came out. So the signature was very effective with proactive detection. So while Trend, Symantec, and other vendors had to keep releasing new signatures for the new variants that kept getting released, our customers were covered and could really breathe easy because our one proactive detection covered everything. This is what a strong machine learning and artificial intelligence will get you, success. Okay, we do leverage machine learning in other parts of our company. First, our web filtering team does extensive machine learning and data mining to block malicious websites. Here I show a program called UEBA, where we use advanced data analytics to do behavior monitoring. Now, you might recall there was a large retail company that was breached in around 2013. I'm not going to name the company, but they were targeted with a targeted breach. And all of their security systems definitely recorded what was happening. They had the evidence on their log files that there was an intrusion and the data was being tampered with. But they didn't see it because they couldn't find that needle in the haystack. And what this program does, UEBA does, it monitors and learns behavior patterns and anomalies, and it reports it to your security operating system so that they now know what they should be focusing their time and attention on. For example, if I logged in from home, I live near Seattle, and then maybe 30 minutes later it showed me logging in from Spain, well, that's clearly not going to work. I'm not going to get to Spain in 30 minutes, so that's a flag. It monitors for abnormal, non-standard hours. So if I normally work 9 to 5, suddenly I'm accessing a server at 1 a.m., well, that's a flag. So again, these are types of behaviors that really help identify anomalies and that need to be further looked at. And lastly, before I turn it over to Neil, I'm going to talk about our IOC program. So IOCs, indicators of compromise, are observables. These are artifacts that are observed in a network or an operating system that we have a high confidence that it indicates a computer intrusion. So we gather information from a variety of sources: global sensors, web crawlers, thread exchanges, private public forums, machine learning tools, and overall we create a daily feed of about 500,000 indicators. And these type of indicators, they can be bad domains, they can be IP addresses, they can be malicious URLs. And they could be related to CNC activity, sinkhole attacks, otherwise. And this again provides context for the Security Operations Center. So now they know what's happening outside of their company, and now they can scan for that internally. And what's really cool about this program is you have the capability to go further back in time and now take that list and scan your historical logs to see if you potentially missed something previously. So did someone visit one of these websites that now we know is bad? Was there possible communication with a CNC server that we didn't know about before? This is a huge value to this kind of a program. And this tool works with our FortiSIM and FortiAnalyzer. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Neil. He's going to talk about our FortiGuard Threat Intelligence Service. Go ahead, Neil.
All right, thanks. So just want to give a little bit of background, though, first, before we get into TIS or the new FortiGuard Threat Intelligence Service. There are quite a few different roles than a typical organization. Usually, kind of, if you're a less mature organization, just maybe a startup, you'll have an IT manager that's kind of dedicated to doing everything, right? So they have to have the depth, they have to have a depth of knowledge, but then also a breadth of knowledge, meaning that they have to understand how all these portfolio products work that they implement. Moving kind of towards the center there, you've got a risk analyst. So in a larger organization, they're going to have a dedicated role, right? So an example of this might be someone who is a threat hunter working on the SIM team within a large multinational organization. So again, in that case, they're going to have very specific product knowledge around the SIM, and they're going to have very deep product knowledge. But what we're finding is with a CISO, you know, yes, they'll have to have kind of that experience and background, but at the end of the day, they're really looking for some high-level information to get and make better decisions for their organization in general. And so, you know, their role is slightly different, I would say, than, you know, a typical IT manager or risk analyst. You know, the reality is they want to know, you know, how they compare to similar organizations, you know, what's going on in the industry at large. And, you know, again, it'll help them direct their security staff and keep their fellow executives apprised of various risks. So those security decision makers are often faced with a number of use cases and needs. They want to know what their security operations team work is. They want to make sure that their work is valuable and impactful. They want to know how their security posture stands, relatively speaking. They want to educate fellow executives on risks facing their business, and they want to better prepare themselves to help prioritize kind of their day-to-day tasks. And really, at the end of the day, and kind of the bottom point there is they just want to make sure that they achieve cyber situational awareness and make sure they stay ahead of the game and be strategic rather than tactical. So, so all of these things, you know, mean that a CISO has to have various tool sets at their disposal, right? So they need to have a threat intelligence solution that's going to help them to lower their threat profile, understand the bigger picture, and get guidance from dedicated threat researchers. And so these are all the types of capabilities that a service like FortiGuard TIS provides. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the key differentiators for FortiGuard TIS. Often, CISOs are going to enlist multiple vendor feeds to kind of assist with their efforts, but there's several areas where FortiGuard TIS excels that could impact your threat intelligence planning. So if you look at the upper left-hand quadrant there, we have the largest sensor network available. So what that means is we have a very large sampling of threat data, and that's critical to providing good guidance, right? So Fortinet has a really, a major competitive advantage here. As Jeanette mentioned, we're ingesting, 50 billion plus events per day. So having that large sample size means that we can give more accurate guidance to our customers. Secondly, in the upper right there, we get a lot of telemetry from across the network. So, it's not just that we're getting it from FortiGates or basically firewall devices. Because we have a set of fabric products, we can kind of get that comprehensive view and cull our threat intelligence from various sensors across the internet. And again, like I mentioned, not just kind of those gateway firewalls, but also segmentation firewalls, wireless devices, access points, so on and so forth. On the bottom left, FortiGuard Labs, I know that Jeanette talked about that a little bit earlier, but it's really one of the preeminent threat research institutions in the world. So we've got 200 plus threat researchers at our disposal, and all of them are providing unique and timely guidance to our customers. So we really feel that kind of having that these FortiGuard researchers is a big feather in our cap in terms of providing better and more accurate guidance to our customers. And lastly, we want to make sure that the FortiGuard TIS service is available to various tiers of users. So some are going to want to use TIS for various different reasons. Some want to just understand the threat landscape in general, and others want to understand how those threats will map directly to their organizations. And so Fortinet has a model to address each of those different types of CTI customers. Okay, so I wanted to give a little example, a few screenshots of FortiGuard TIS now. And in this scenario, I'm going to play Eric Sullivan. I'm a chief security officer with a healthcare company called MetaHealth. And so the first thing I want to do is, I guess on a weekly basis, Eric, typically gets weekly updates from his direct reports and security operations team. And at the beginning of each week, he would log into FortiGuard TIS to get insights into his immediate network security challenges. So first off, he's going to log in with his account. That account has already been linked with his FortiCare account, and what that means is he'll be able to pull device information associated with his org. So looking at the device information, I can see, okay, well, there are maybe 15 or so FortiGates that I've got registered to my FortiCare account. I can also see kind of what the status is, current status of some of the FortiGuard licensing, and also I can see whether or not those are currently sending telemetry to TIS for further analysis. Secondly, after he logs in, he's going to want to monitor the overall progress of MetaHealth security efforts. So, are the firewall rules and the corporate uses policies, the internal processes that they're putting in place, are those working overall? And you can quickly kind of determine some of that by looking at the trends dashboard in the TIS portal. In this case, we're looking at trends information overall. So week over week, I can see that last week we ingested 284 billion total events, and also we can see basically 30 billion network intrusion attempts that were found last week, and those seem abnormally high. But one of the things you'll note is that we also have these indicators about trending, and see that those numbers are actually trending significantly downward. So that's a good thing overall. It doesn't mean that you can't continue to iterate and improve, but it does mean that the threat activity is moving in a positive direction. Okay, so the second thing here, after they look at the general trends, Eric is going to look at the kill chain information. And he can look at charts related to applications, IPS attack, malware, and botnets. But Eric is going to focus on IPS attacks in this case. So in the upper left, I know it's hard to see, but if you move left to right, you can see that it kind of gets progressively worse in the kill chain. So you've got applications, application vulnerabilities, IPS attacks that will take advantage of those. Malware you can install, botnets are the worst case. And so, and in the upper right, we are looking at various segmentations. So in this case, I'm looking at healthcare over the last 7 days. And what I can see is, I can see my organization, MetaHealth. I can see how that relates to the healthcare industry at large. What are the top IPS attacks that we're seeing? I can also see, not just within the healthcare industry, but how does my organization stack up across all industries, regardless of vertical. The other kind of cool thing you can do here is you can dissect that activity and look at, trending location and device information to give you even more context into what's going on in the larger threat landscape. One thing you can do is you can also, some of these have little yellow dots there, and what that means is you can click on those. Those have various commentaries that our FortiGuard Labs team provides that are relevant to specific attack types. And so if they're seeing a deluge of a certain type of attack, they might make a little journal entry and add color commentary here that could be useful, again, in your day-to-day decision making and making better decisions. So if you click on one of those IPS attacks, you might get a page like this where you're able to see the FortiGuard encyclopedia and information related to that specific attack. But also, I think more interestingly, we can pull some statistical analysis related to that IPS attack. And so I can see, okay, well, relative to not just my organization, the healthcare industry, maybe overall, where does this threat rank? Where should this be on our radar? Is it moving up and down? How's it trending? We do some deviation analysis to provide a classification as well, and ubiquity. So, what percentage of networks are we actually seeing this specific attack in? So all the information, again, what that gives you is just additional context to help prioritize and make better CISO decisions. All right, so that's kind of the quick overview of the TIS service, but I want to talk a little bit about various flavors of it. So we have a free version and a paid version. We also have a trial version, but the free version will kind of give you a lot of the threat landscape dashboards that I showed you just previously, and a lot of the kind of the industry profile updates and that sort of thing. But what the paid service will give you is you'll get some additional early warning alerts, some additional premium commentary, and also the ability to kind of stack up your devices to the threat landscape at large. So the part where we're showing devices, linking that to your FortiCare account, those types of things, that's all part of the paid service. So so if you're interested, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and go to tis.fortiguard.com/signup and go ahead and sign up and at least get looking at the free service. And then if it's something that you think your organization's is going to be useful to your organization, then ask your local rep about converting that into a paid subscription. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jeanette.
Thank you very much, Neil. Good info. So as you heard, we get an unprecedented amount of threat intelligence from a variety of sources, and it gives us that perspective of the threat landscape like no other. And we take all that threat intelligence and it accumulates into our quarterly threat report. Our next release is May 16th, so please keep an eye out for that. It's a great read. I encourage you to download it and read it. It's going to give you the global cyber threat landscape from many perspectives. There's a number of cool deep dives into what's happening. So please check it out. And last, the FortiGuard Advantage plays right into the FortiGuard fabric. When you have an actionable intelligence combined with the expert systems like I defined, it allows you to fight that adversarial automation with our own automation. FortiGuard we can identify new and existing malware, and we can deploy preventative measures that will be integrated across the entirety of the security fabric. That's the FortiGuard advantage. It's a true intelligent and automated defense, actionable intelligence at its best. So that's all we have. Thank you very much.